it's a lot that a lot of people, we don't think about. It's a lot of stuff we just see happen and we don't understand our relationship to it organically. It's just, it is what it is. We're going to get into a few of these things because it's important to learn to understand the concept of the zodiac, horoscopes and what that's about, and the planets and what that's about. Like, how does that really affect us, and what we need to know and do to receive the highest appreciation or the highest value of what it has, to give us. And there's a context that we need to understand in relation to everything that's going on around us, because it's a lot seen and unseen. And again, this stuff is always about energy, and we have to understand it's so much energy around us, so many things. The sun, the moon, wind, water, fire, earth, all these things give off energy. And there's so many things that grow from the ground that benefit us, that benefit mankind, the animals, and so on and so forth. And it's this whole, what they call the force, when you understand it's this whole relationship that everything has to each other that we don't really understand anymore because that knowledge is gone. The animals understand it. Plants understand it. The trees understand it. The winds. Everybody understands. Everything else on this planet understands what's going on, and we're lost. And it's us not realizing that, this connection is important. It's like really important to our spiritual growth. And as I talk about in deeper videos, how this is really put out there for us to understand. And there is no real purpose to life, because it's hard to say it that, there's no purpose, but there's a purpose. You have to really understand what that means, because it's deep, because there is really no purpose. The whole thing is about you just living life, experiencing life, going throughout your day, experiencing. And now, to get the most out of us, to maximize our growth, energetically and consciously, we have to have experiences. We have to have choices. And that's what it comes down to. So you just living your life and doing what you're supposed to do and going about those choices that you have to make is your experience in this existence. And we have been through it enough to where, it is what it is. It's in our DNA. The fact that, of course, we come from our parents, why don't we get this? And people don't understand this, how deep this is. Yeah, we come from our parents. So the fact that these genetic traits is passed down to us to where we can look like our parents, we can do things that our parents did or our grandparents did, that tells you right there that that generation was passed down. That knowledge, that energy was passed down through your parents to you, and you now carry it, which tells you what? That reincarnation is a real thing, and that the energy continues. We're going to get into energy a lot in this video. We're going to get into it a lot because you need to understand it's the same energy. We've been so confused by Adam and Eve and who was here first and so on and so forth that we don't understand that basic principle that we're all energy, the same energy experiencing itself in a physical form. This one cosmic conscious energy that's here that wants to experience this physical reality on this level. The only way possible to do it is to be in the physical, plain and simple. So energy all around us, plain and simple. We got to understand that it's energy everywhere. A lot of energy is seen, but a lot of it is also unseen. Now, we talked about in ancient Egypt how they had this wireless energy, the whole true purpose of the pyramids, and the whole thing about, the ionosphere and the negative ions, and how the pyramids was producing these negative ions and what that means and how it benefits us. And we talked about the tombs. When you go into a lot of these Egyptian tombs, there was evidence that there was a light source within there, a wireless light source. And then we get into Nikola Tesla. Tesla discovered this, and he basically went in and broke down the science on this whole thing. And this is what it says. Just go down here. It says, at the height of his career, the pioneering electrical engineer Nikola Tesla became obsessed with an idea. He theorized that electricity could be transmitted wirelessly through the air at long distances, either via a series of strategically positioned towers or hopping across a system of suspended balloons. So Tesla understood it. He broke it down how this was possible. And that was the thing with Tesla. It's all about energy, electricity. The whole thing with the, car right now and the Tesla that's out now, it's about electricity. So he understood this. And, when you understand the story real quick about Tesla, it was JP Morgan that basically funded him to go ahead and do this project. And, he let on that the project was basically going to be to build this whole, electrical tower that was going to kind of make it easier to send information between ships. And he had to put them on, different coasts. I think one was going to be in Europe, one's going to be in the Americas. And it was going to kind of have like a monopoly on being able to send, information or signals, via ships. And JP Morgan was one of the owners of the Titanic and one of the owners of a lot of ships. Everybody know his family was wealthy and all that. But Tesla was basically working on, his whole wireless energy invention to basically give everybody free energy. That was his goal, to have the world have free energy, because he knew the energy was everywhere. It was in the air. And once JP Morgan found out about it, he cut all ties and cut funding. And we know that Tesla ended up dying, alone in his apartment. And broke. So big deal about understanding Tesla, and it's so much more to him that we'll get into in the next video because it's important. But so we have this understanding, energy all around us, everywhere. And there's so much stuff that happens that people don't understand. And one of the biggest things that we take for granted is air. Air is everywhere. Wind. How is it possible? How do we get air? How does wind blow? And it's just something we take for granted every day. And we don't really understand that this energy around us, or when you start to think about energy, it's like, where? But every single thing, every single piece of matter has energy and emits energy, which we'll get into. But with air, Earth is the reason why we can have air. And then you have to think about terraforming a planet and why Earth would be important. So we just call Earth, Earth. It's just Earth. We also call ground Earth, but what is that? And we know it comes from out there. We know we see meteors and comets, and we see, some have metal in it, but it's rock, dirt, dust. What is that from? So when you start breaking it down to basic, particles and atoms, it's like Earth must be really important. But it's important because if you're going to have life, you need Earth. You need rock, because everything stems from the Earth. It's a big deal. So you have the sun basically heat up the ground, and you have, air is a molecule, and it's actually a couple molecules, oxygen, nitrogen, oxygen. There's a few other, gases and molecules, but you have the sun heat up the Earth. And then what you have is, as the Earth get hotter, you have this air. Air is created. And then the hotter it get, the more it begins to fan out and rises. And then we have air. So air rises, right? So then on the flip side, you have that hot air rising. On the flip side, you have cool air. And we know the cooler air basically takes the place of the air that rises, if it's near. So the warmer air, it expands, it rises, gets lighter. And the cooler air is dense, it's heavy, it weighs down, it takes the place of the rising, lighter expanding air. And then you have wind. So again, that process is called wind. So we have this. So this is energy moving around us 24/7. So since it's always wind, this is always happening. So it says here, when thermal energy radiates from the sun, it heats both the land and ocean. But water has a specific high heat capacity, so it heats up slower than land. This temperature difference creates a convection current, which then manifests as wind. This wind possesses kinetic energy, which it can transfer to grains of sand on the beach by carrying them a short distance. If the moving sand hits an obstacle, it stops due to the friction created by the contact, and its kinetic energy is then transformed into thermal energy or heat. Once enough sand builds up over time, these collisions can create sand dunes and possibly even an entire dune field. That's what I learned in school. These newly formed sand dunes provide a unique environment for plants and animals. A plant may grow in these dunes by using light energy. Light energy is big. We'll get into that. A plant may grow in these dunes by using light energy radiated from the sun. to transform water and carbon dioxide into chemical energy, which is stored in sugar. When an animal eats the plant, it uses the energy stored in that sugar to heat its body and move around, transforming the chemical energy into kinetic and thermal energy. Though it may not always be obvious, energy transfers and transmissions constantly happen all around us and are what enable life as we know it to exist. The sun, that's why the sun is God. So when Christians talking about, oh, God created us and created that, and people who don't believe in reincarnation, it's like, well, how is he creating a new body, a new energy? Body, understand, it's material, but a new energy to go in that body. How is that possible when energy, as it says here, energy cannot be created or destroyed, meaning that the total amount of energy in the universe has always been and will always be constant. However, this does not mean that energy is immutable. It can change form and even transfer between objects, which basically what he was saying, energy cannot be created or destroyed by transfer from one form to another. It's important stuff, understanding that. So just the whole concept of God creating this new energy that people think, or Christians will have us believe, is this whole totally new person and not a reincarnation or a transformation of, energy that existed. So reincarnation, you coming back in a different body, but the same energy that the body locks away those memories for a reason, but the DNA activates and does what it's supposed to do and recalls the memories it needs to recall, like how to walk and talk and so on and so forth, depending on the body and, how good it's, taken care of, or how good the mom was and, prenatal care. So we have energy from the ground, molecules in the ground. We have energy in the air. We have this whole process with light, which we'll get into. And it's so much going on around us. And we heard this whole term of airways. Remember, for those of you who are old enough to remember radio stations and airways and stuff like that, everything's digital for a reason. So we had airwaves. Airwaves, and it was like, oh, we're playing your station on the airwaves. And it was like, what was that about? The airwaves. So we know radio stations had those huge radio towers, satellites or what have you. And then we had, that's the transmitter. We had the receiver, which would be our radios. Your radio picked up this signal. Again, this is stuff that we just so nonchalantly take, for granted and not really understanding the process and how it really is, big to us and the universe. So we have these radios that's picking up this signal coming from this large antenna at the radio station, but we never understood the process. I mean, you got to think about it. Okay, so how does it work? Like, you got this big radio tower and somehow I'm receiving a signal from that tower to my little radio. How is that possible? I can't see it. And how is it that I can't see it and it's energy? How is it possible to transfer this music and voice to a signal that I can't see that's going to go into my radio and then, give me sound? It's just crazy. And the science behind, radio stations is real simple. Though that tower has electricity flowing through it, and the flow of the electricity causes the electrons within the antenna to basically vibrate, which creates radio waves. And these radio waves basically, transmit out. And if you have a radio that is tuned in to that frequency, which will be that station's number, you might as well say, then you'll be in tune with that radio. Now, we as conscious people, we talk about being in tune with the universe and in tune with, and we don't go back and think about where did we hear these terms and phrases from. Like, you got to tune into your favorite television programming. Tune into tune. And it's basically you tuning in and getting in tune with, what's being put out. But it's deeper because we can, on so many other levels, get in tune. We just don't know how. We know what they gave us. So we have these radio waves. And radio waves is basically electromagnetic radiation traveling at the speed of light. So that light or that radiation or that frequency reaches our radio. So then, what is light? It's traveling at the speed of light. What is light? Light is energy, of course. Light has a frequency just like those radio waves have a frequency. So These electromagnetic waves is covered by the electromagnetic spectrum, which is a range of frequencies of electromagnetic radiation in regards to its wavelength, frequency, and photon energy, as we can see here in this chart. So the longer the wavelength, the lower the frequency, and the shorter the wavelength, the higher the frequency. And there is an infinite range of frequencies in electromagnetic waves. So this range from radio waves, microwaves, infrared, light that we can see, visible light, which would be basically the color spectrum. Then we have like X-rays and gamma rays or what have you. And this is the spectrum. And we heard this whole term, the electromagnetic spectrum or the spectrum of light. And this is what, we can see, this visible light. It's the only spectrum we was given. And we've been told animals can see different spectrums, seeing different things that we can't see. But this is what we can see for a reason. And if you think about it, with all this air and energy going around, I mean, who wants to see the Bluetooth signal or the Wi-Fi signal? We don't want to see that. That's unseen energy. We know it exists, but it will be all across our face, going through our bodies, so on and so forth. And the higher, if it was tuned up higher, which is this whole 5G stuff, it would affect us. So we have all the stuff that's going on right now has to be emitted at a certain frequency, a certain level that is not harmful to material, to our bodies.